Welcome back to Games You Might Not Have Tried, everybody. It's been a long time since we featured a bunch of console games on here, so let's do that today. Like always, all of these games are interesting. They're not necessarily all good, but they do all show off some intriguing facet of design or tell a story in a new and novel way. They've all got something we can learn from, but sometimes that means that we recommend them here with the hope that some other team will learn from them and then deliver on that potential in a more polished or effective way. Also, since we're talking about console releases here, these games aren't necessarily obscure. They're just the kind of game that might have passed you by amidst the tidal wave of hits we've been seeing lately. So, caveats aside, let's get to it. Let It Die. This is a new James favorite right here. It's Grasshopper Studios at their best. It has that wonderful punk rock, in-your-face feeling that most studios shy away from to play it safe. Its over-the-top ultra-violence supports the feel of the world and the setting, rather than simply being there to pander to players' bloodlust. It's got an intriguing story and a world that you'll want to know more about. Its combat may not be on a Dark Souls level, but it'll still have you white-knuckling your controller. Most of all, though, it's got microtransactions done right. The game is a roguelike in which you try to ascend this tower full of enemies, and it's entirely free to play, but being a roguelike, you have to survive long enough to make it back to an elevator, or you will lose all of your progress, which can be just as harrowing as making it back to a Dark Souls bonfire. But if you do die, the game gives you the option to pay roughly the equivalent of 25 cents to get back up and keep going, just like an arcade. They give you a few credits for free every week, and back when James was playing a ton of this, he found himself paying maybe 75 cents a week for continues, usually due to stupid mistakes or overconfidence. Now, I'm 100% willing to pay 75 cents a week for something that gives me hours of entertainment in return. I wish more games would approach free-to-play like this. Oh, and somewhere buried in the PlayStation Store menus, there's a one-time offer for a $5 starter pack that gives you several months worth of starting credits, so, you know, if you like the game, that's probably worth getting. Yakuza 0. If the 2 times we already name-dropped this game weren't recommendation enough, here is the official Games You Might Not Have Tried endorsement. We've wanted to recommend a Yakuza game forever, but none of the games were ever quite there. This time, though, I feel like they nailed it. Yakuza 0 presents an interesting take on open-world design. Instead of giving a huge open space with vast swaths of empty landscape, they have a very compact open world with something interesting to find every few feet. More than that, the story is awesome, the side stories are some of the most endearing you'll find in modern gaming, there is so much style to everything, and their representation of 80s Japan is phenomenal. There are also so many mini-games that I don't even know how to describe them. If you want to play shogi or mahjong, there are full and complete versions of each of those games in there. You want to do some batting practice, bowling, race slot cars, sing some karaoke? Those are all in there, and I am only scratching the surface. Heck, there are fully emulated Sega games packed into this, not to mention a real estate minigame and a running a nightclub minigame that each have their own storylines, and you could easily pour hours into each of those if you wanted. So if you're looking for a fun, tough guy with a heart of gold story that is dripping with style, you could do a lot worse than Yakuza 0. Oh, and it's a prequel, so it's the perfect place to jump into the series. Everything. What do you want to be? Name anything. Literally anything. Okay, this game is batty. You can literally be anything. You want to roll around as a goat? Gotcha covered. Pop down a level and you can waddle around as a beetle, or as a patch of grass. Pop down one more time, now you're moss. Drop down one more and now you're playing a bacteria. Or maybe go the other way, go bigger, become a continent, or a planet, or a galaxy. There are literally hundreds of things to discover and become, all accompanied by the pseudo-mystic lectures of Alan Watts.
One of the first things which everybody should understand is that every creature in the universe that is in any way sensitive and in any manner of speaking conscious regards itself as a human being.
Of course, as you've probably noticed, to include basically everything that's in this game, they had to cut some corners on the animation and art and the gameplay, but come on, it's everything.
It's not only that every little organism which exists depends on its total environment. The reverse is also true, that the total environment depends on each and every one of those little organisms. So that you could say this universe consists of an arrangement of pattern in which every event is essential to the whole thing.
NieR Automata. I guess games that let you do a lot of things has sort of been a theme today, and NieR Automata is no exception. Sometimes this game is an open-world action RPG. Sometimes it's a single-stick shooter. Sometimes it's a twin-stick shooter. Sometimes it is a pig-riding simulator. But most of all, it is a tragedy. It may not seem that way at first, but it's got more heartbreaking moments than the rest of the AAA scene delivers in a year. And these moments aren't the sort of forced tear-jerkers that you see in so many RPGs where a character you love sacrifices themselves for the greater cause. These are smaller tragedies. Tragedies that feel much more real. Tragedies that really stick with you. Did you play NieR? Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't played NieR, go play NieR too. Sexy Brutale. If 8 hours of murder and mayhem sound a-okay to you, then let's talk the Sexy Brutale. Now, this isn't the type of mayhem and murder you might be expecting, though. This is really the Groundhog's Day of murder. It's sort of an adventure puzzle stealth game where you're trying to stop a wacky series of murders in a mansion where you can hop back in time. And while some of the ways hopping back in time works can be a little irksome, like having to re-pick up all the things you just picked up, it's actually the generous approach to stealth that intrigued me with this one. The rewind mechanics take away some of that arbitrary punishment feeling that a lot of stealth games can give, especially if you're the impatient type. Now, this game is not without flaws, but if you're looking for an adventure with a solid, morbid writing that revels in its Poe and its Edward Gorey, you better check out Sexy Brutale. And finally, Resident Evil 7. Granted, I know it's a little weird to put a game that sold umpteen million copies on this list, but this is about games you might not have tried, and I know that I almost didn't try this one. What can I say? I had gotten a little tired of the action shooter series that Resident Evil had become. But if you had the same reticence that I did, don't fear. Or do fear, because this is the first Resident Evil game in a long time that returns to its horror roots. Moreover, it does so in an interesting way. I was amazed to see a Japanese studio totally nail what I call Appalachian horror, this weird American fear of primitive, almost atavistic families, isolated in the vast backcountry of the United States. And, in an interesting twist that I hope doesn't spoil too much, they managed to slide in just the slightest bit of commentary by having this family we're supposed to be afraid of not actually be degenerate or evil until they come into contact with a certain unambiguously evil megacorp. Resident Evil is good again, y'all. Make some time for it. And with that, I will leave you. Hopefully something here will help you get through those summer doldrums. See you next week.